We all carry a shadow, not just the silhouette cast by the sun, but a psychological imprint stitched into the fabric of who we are, a part of ourselves we deny, suppress, maybe even fear. And yet, according to Carl Jung, it is precisely this shadow, the part of us we refuse to see, that holds the key to our wholeness. Jung wasn't just talking about darkness in a poetic sense. He meant something very real. To him, the shadow was everything within us that our conscious self refuses to acknowledge. The rejected traits, the impulses, the chaos, the guilt, the parts of us that don't fit our personal narrative. We all want to be good, to be seen as kind, rational, in control. So we push our anger, jealousy, and fear underground. We hide it, mask it, rationalize it. And in doing so, we don't eliminate the darkness. We make it unconscious. That's where the real danger begins. Most of us live behind a mask. What Jung called the persona. It's the version of ourselves shaped for the world. Curated, polished, socially acceptable. But the more we identify with this mask, the more we forget the raw truth of who we are. Let's say you pride yourself on being calm. Stoic, rational. You suppress your rage. It festers in the shadow, growing sharper, more distorted. One day it slips through, not as anger, but as passive aggression, cynicism, or depression. The shadow doesn't stay buried forever. It leaks into our relationships, our decisions, our art, our politics. It's the elephant in the room, present, powerful, and invisible. Until it isn't, Jung believed that confronting the shadow is not just a psychological exercise. It's a moral and spiritual one. Knowing your own darkness, he wrote, is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people. To meet your shadow is to stand in front of a mirror that shows what you don't want to see. Your capacity for cruelty, your hunger for validation, your tendency to manipulate, lie, judge, betray. But here's the paradox. The more you run from your shadow, the more powers it has over you. The more you face it, the more integrated you become. The goal isn't to destroy the shadow. You can't delete parts of your psyche. The goal is integration. The lifelong process of becoming whole. Shadow work means making peace with the parts of you you've labeled as unacceptable. A man who integrates his shadow becomes dangerous, but in the best way. Not because he lashes out, but because he understands his capacity to do so and chooses not to. He doesn't repress his rage. He harnesses it as clarity, as courage, as fire. This is maturity. This is power. Not control over others, but control over oneself. Why do we resist this work so fiercely? Because shadow work hurts. It challenges the story we've told ourselves. It forces us to admit, I am not only who I wish to be, I am also what I fear to be. The shadow often forms in childhood, when we learn that certain feelings get us punished, rejected, or ignored, so we exile those parts to survive. But survival isn't the same as living, and sooner or later, the parts we've exiled come knocking. Here's what most people miss. The shadow isn't just darkness, it's also potential. It contains creativity, passion, confidence, sexuality, intuition. All things we may have repressed to fit in. Jung called this the golden shadow, the treasure hidden in the dragon's cave. To reclaim it, we must walk through fear, guilt, shame. But when we do, we don't just become better. We become more. Shadow work isn't a one-time event. It's a path, a spiral. We meet our shadow again and again, at different levels, in new forms. Each time it asks us, are you ready to hold all of yourself? Integration is a dance between light and dark, It's where the hero meets the monster and finds out they were never separate. It's the alchemy of the soul. Carl Jung didn't promise comfort. He promised transformation. And maybe that's what we're really after. Not perfection, but the courage to face ourselves completely. Because the shadow you run from might just be the part of you that saves your life. It's not just individuals who have shadows. Societies have them too. Cultures, nations, movements. Carl Jung warned that when masses of people refuse to face their individual shadows, the result is a collective shadow, projected outward onto scapegoats, enemies, and the other. History shows us what happens when we disown our darkness and place it onto others. Genocide, hatred, authoritarianism. We call it evil, but rarely admit. It began with us, with a refusal to see what we're capable of. The most dangerous people are not the ones who know they can do harm. It's those who believe they never would. Jung believed that our dreams are one of the clearest paths to the shadow. In them, the unconscious speaks in metaphor. Night after night, the parts we repress slip past our waking defenses. To speak in symbols. You dream of chasing someone, or being chased. You meet a monster, or become one. You speak words you'd never say aloud. These aren't just nonsense. They're messages from you to you. And if you're willing to listen, your shadow might tell you what it needs. As you begin shadow work, something curious happens. An inner voice shows up. It says, "Don't go there. It's dangerous. You'll lose control. You'll become someone bad." That voice is not your shadow. It's your inner critic. It formed to protect you, to keep you safe, small, and acceptable. But as you grow, its warnings become walls. And yet, behind every wall is freedom, if you're brave enough to break through. Shadow work doesn't happen in isolation. We discover our unconscious selves most vividly. In relationships, every person we love or hate is a mirror. They reflect back the traits we struggle to own. You despise someone's arrogance. Maybe it's your own ambition, long denied. You envy someone's freedom. Maybe it's your own inner child, begging to be let out. Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves, if we dare to look." So what does shadow work look like, practically? It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's journaling with brutal honesty. Sometimes it's noticing the sting of jealousy and asking, "What does this say about me?" It's catching yourself before a lie slips out and choosing to speak the truth. It's admitting, "I was wrong," or "I'm afraid," or "I want more than I've allowed myself to admit." It's not about being healed. It's about being real. Many artists, writers, musicians, knowingly or not, draw their power from the shadow. It's the birthplace of raw emotion, repressed truth, and unconventional vision. Great art often emerges not from light, but from struggle. To create is to descend, to wander into chaos, and return with something meaningful. Jung believed this is how the soul speaks, not in perfection, but in symbols, in archetypes, in the beauty of broken things. Jung also spoke of archetypes, universal patterns in the human psyche, and among them lives the shadow archetype, appearing in myths, stories, and religion as the villain, the monster, the outcast. But what if the villain isn't just evil, but a part of the hero, disowned? What if Gollum was Frodo's shadow? What if Darth Vader was Anakin's future unacknowledged? In myths, the hero always meets the monster. And sometimes the final step is realizing they're the same person. Most spiritual paths speak of light, love, compassion, awakening. But Jung believed that true enlightenment doesn't come from imagining figures of light. It comes from making the darkness conscious. The shadow doesn't oppose the soul, it completes it. And only when we welcome all of who we are, the saint and the sinner, do we step into authentic spirituality. Not as perfect beings, but as whole ones. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Not the person your parents wanted, not who your culture rewarded, not the mask, not the persona, but the totality of you, light and dark, broken and blooming, shadow and soul." So maybe the question isn't, how do I get rid of my darkness? Maybe it's, what is my darkness trying to teach me? The journey into the shadow is not an escape from the world. It's a return to it with clearer eyes, with a steadier heart, with the courage to face everything you are. Because when you finally stop running and turn to face the shadow, you might find it's been waiting for you to come home. Most of us want to believe we're good. We divide the world into heroes and villains, right and wrong, light and dark, but the truth is more unsettling. The most terrifying realization in shadow work is not that bad people do bad things, but that we, good, kind, loving people, are capable of cruelty, of betrayal, of selfishness, vengeance, and pride. It doesn't mean we're evil. It means we're human. There's a misconception about healing. That one day, we'll be done, whole, enlightened. But Jung never promised that. Integration doesn't mean becoming flawless. It means becoming honest. It means saying, I still get angry. I still feel jealous. I still carry wounds. But now, I see them. Now, I choose what to do with them. The shadow doesn't go away, but it stops running the show from behind the curtain. If the shadow has a gatekeeper, its name is shame. Shame tells us, you're too much, you're not enough. If people knew the real you, they'd leave. Shame locks the door. But shadow work brings the key. Not by fighting shame, but by listening to it. Where you feel shame, that's often where your most exiled parts are waiting. The shadow isn't just darkness. It also holds power, authenticity, energy, vitality. Many of us have locked away our assertiveness, our sexuality, our ambition, because we were told they were too much. So we became nice, quiet, small. But part of integration is remembering. Your shadow doesn't just want to destroy. It wants to protect you, empower you, liberate you. It's not just the darkness we fear. Sometimes we fear our potential even more. The shadow doesn't only hold rage, envy, or guilt. It holds power, passion, a voice that was silenced too long. What if you're more capable than you think? What if the life you secretly want, the one you've buried under shoulds and shame, is waiting behind the very parts you've disowned? Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. But what if facing your soul isn't a punishment? What if it's a liberation? Let's be clear. Shadow work isn't about becoming perfect. It's not about fixing yourself. It's about integration, a weaving together of opposites into a whole. You are a paradox. You can be kind and selfish, loving and afraid, brave and broken. The work is not to eliminate contradiction. It's to hold it, to say, I am all of this, and I'm still worthy of being here. You don't have to sit in a cave to face your shadow. You face it in traffic, in the tight feeling before you speak your truth, in the way you argue or avoid. It's the envy you scroll past, the anger you swallow, the grief you disguise as laughter. Everyday life is a classroom, every reaction a clue. And the people who push your buttons, they might just be your best teachers. Have you ever felt fake, like you're playing a role just to be liked or accepted? That's the mask. What Jung called the persona. It's useful, but when the mask becomes the identity, you lose touch with what's underneath. Shadow work strips away the performance, not to shame you, but to reveal you. It's about being real. It's saying, this is me, not perfect, but present. Some cultures repress emotion, some repress individuality, some repress pleasure, some repress failure. Depending on where you were raised, certain shadows were handed to you, not because you were bad, but because they didn't fit. Jung warned, when a culture denies the soul, it creates ghosts, people who live but don't feel. But even the most buried parts can be remembered. So what if the shadow isn't a curse? What if it's a compass? What if every moment of shame, every hidden desire, every part of you you thought disqualified you from being whole, was actually showing you the way back to yourself? The shadow isn't the enemy, it's the lost twin of your light. And when you walk with it, not against it, you become real. In the end, shadow work is not about becoming someone else. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. Carl Jung's work was not about answers. It was about process, the never-ending spiral inward toward the truth of what it means to be human. So if you feel afraid, if you feel overwhelmed, if you wonder if it's even worth it, remember this: the shadow only grows darker when ignored. But when met with compassion, it becomes a doorway, not into darkness, but into depth. Thank you for walking with me, not towards the light, but through the dark, because that's where the truth lives, and perhaps that's where you live too. Every culture has myths, not just stories, but maps of the soul. And in nearly every myth, there is a descent into darkness. Persephone is taken to the underworld. Jesus wanders the desert. Buddha faces Mara under the Bodhi tree. These aren't just tales. They are mirrors, because to know who you are, you must go down first. Jung believed the mythic wasn't something out there. It was the architecture of the psyche. And the shadow? It is the underworld inside you. The closer you get to your shadow, the louder another voice becomes. You can't go there. You'll be rejected. You'll fall apart. That voice, it's the inner critic, a guardian at the threshold. It pretends to protect you, but it's fueled by fear. And here's the truth most don't tell you. You don't silence the inner critic by arguing. You outgrow it by listening and choosing anyway. No one triggers your shadow like the people you love. Projection is Jung's word for this. When we see in others what we refuse to see in ourselves, the partner you call too needy. Maybe they touch a wound you buried, the friend you admire but resent. Maybe they reflect your unlived potential. Shadow work in solitude is one thing, but in relationship, it's relentless. And that's the point. Grief isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, a longing you can't name, a nostalgia for something you never had. Grief is a shadow too, not because it's bad, but because we rarely let it speak. But when you do, when you let yourself feel what you tried to outrun, grief becomes a portal. It teaches you how to live by showing you what you've lost and what still matters. What if your dreams are trying to tell you something? Jung treated dreams like sacred messages, symbols from the unconscious, clues from the shadow. The monster chasing you might be a part of you that's tired of being hidden. The ex who keeps showing up might reflect unfinished grief. To dream is to open a dialogue, not with fantasy, but with truth you've buried. There's your personal shadow. And then there's ours. Society has shadows too. The truths it refuses to face. Racism, misogyny, violence, exploitation. They are not out there. They live inside systems and people. Jung warned, what is not brought to consciousness appears in our lives as fate, and history has shown. What we repress collectively, we repeat violently. Shadow work is sacred, but it's not easy. To do this work, you need a container, a therapist, a safe friend, a journal, a ritual. You don't need to walk this path alone, and you shouldn't. Healing isn't about toughness, it's about tenderness, held consistently. Some people fear their darkness, others fear their light. It can feel like too much, too exposed, too vulnerable, but light doesn't have to burn. It can warm, it can guide. The point of shadow work isn't to become enlightened in a grandiose way. It's to become human, fully, softly, bravely. What if strength isn't pushing through? What if it's pausing, telling the truth, letting yourself cry? We've been sold a version of strength that numbs us, that says, be stoic, be fine, be productive. But what if strength is being real, even when it's messy? What if it's holding the pieces of yourself with reverence? So here you are, still breathing, still wondering, still becoming. You are not just the parts you show the world. You are also the secrets, the scars, the sparks that haven't caught fire yet. You are a story in progress, not a highlight reel, not a brand, a living, aching, radiant story. And maybe, just maybe, the shadow wasn't holding you back. Maybe it was always holding the pen.